Okay. Thank you. Good morning to everybody. And I'm very glad of this occasion that Anna Friuli and Esther Giulia is to illustrate the work done together with BBRZ and the partners of this project in developing the first two outcomes that we delivered in this phase, which is on one side the guidelines that Ingrid already quickly illustrate to you, and where you can find very useful information and self-assessment tools to understand if your organization is inclusive or not, is open or not, more or less. It's a kind of screening that probably will be adopted in the future, because the last step of this project is aimed to set up a kind of label of small and medium open museums at European level. So we will need a common frame of benchmarking, let's say, of the level of inclusiveness these institutions can guarantee. But we also strongly believe that to really have an inclusive and open museum, you need to raise the awareness and knowledge of the operators of those museums about what disability is. And thus we developed a training program, let's say, a very quick training program, which in any case should be considered as a, let's say, the minimum level of training we expect a museum who candidates to be part of the coming network in the future to be compliant with. And so I will quickly tell you on how we built it and two or three very relevant points I believe we have in it. So the training design was one of the very first issues we faced from the very first meeting of BBSZ and DENA, because we felt that we faced some different constraints, let's say, coming from the process on one side, from the project budget, time schedules, number of days we had available to deliver this training, and on the other side, on the typology of the museums which are members of the projects, which are very different in size and organization, and so they have different needs also. And also those museums are very different in the level of inclusiveness they already reached. And so even under the point of view of the training of their operators, the needs are different. So the design principles we adopted have been based on defining learning outcomes which depict activities that participants to the courses will be able to carry out after the course. And this is some kind normal for us, but not always in the training programs. In such kind of training proposal you find this approach. The modularity of the thing, so to have a system that could be easily adapted to the specific needs of the museum. But I'd say the more important thing that we have had occasion to verify during the first piloting of the training made here in Udine 2 weeks ago is the the involvement of the Disabled People Association and experts. As has been already said this morning, this is really a strategic point because the cooperation with the association has been so strong and helpful here that has demonstrated that the theory. I mean, we were in some way aware of the need to involve from the beginning of the design process the target groups, but their contribution has been so strong and interesting, maybe beyond our expectation, let's say. And so this is a very important element. As for the contents, I will go through afterwards with a couple of slides. About the methodology, we worked out the idea that it is really important to adopt a role play during the training of the operators, and so to try to raise the awareness of the barriers that the people can encounter visiting an exhibition, physically feeling them and trying to solve them. So one of the more important expectations we have in the first module, which is about awareness raising, is the fact that the people working in a museum at all levels would be able to map, starting from the service chain scheme, to map the levels of barrier presence and to be sensitive on these barriers, and the tools they can and the attentions they can adopt to help the visitors to solve these problems. The modules are 5, as you can see, very short. It's from 3 to 4 hours, 8 hours then visiting the exhibition, which is dedicated to those people who will accompany the visitors and describe the art pieces, so probably the more important of all the services given in the service chain. And together with this training program that we will test in all the 6 pilot countries we are working on, so we will translate local language, all the things, and test them and collect information and feedback to update these papers, which are published now but are always under construction, let's say, and under updating. We produced also a first draft, let's say, of an handbook that we give to the participants. This handbook structure is similar to the structure of the seminars, obviously, but I will go through 3 elements that in this handbook you can find of help, I believe. The first one, which is present in the chapter regarding the awareness raising, is this focus on the social model approach rather than the medical one, which is so instinctive for people who has disabilities. The second one is the first one that you adopt normally. And we tried in the handbook to make this exercise, which is very difficult, I must say, when I did it, to focus on the barriers rather than on the disabilities. But if you're able to do that, you will reach a great level of, let's say, distance from the disability issue and a focus on something that can help everybody, whether they have or not disabilities, because all the solutions that we are we have had occasion to see today are really helpful, not only for the people with disabilities, but for all the visitors of the museum, in our opinion. And so you have here the example for the mobility impairment, but there is a row of this matrix for all the impairments, visual, mental, and so on. I really ask you to go through this matrix and thinking about it and reflecting about it, because it's really an interesting exercise. The other element we focus on the handbook is the service chain, obviously, which is service chain and matrix of interpretation of the service chain in terms of accessibility. I think is the most innovative thing we made. It's simple, it's interesting, and it can be really transferred in any kind of museum in terms of dimension, because we have seen examples of Louvre, Nantes, which are huge museums. I mean, we have very small realities in our project that we work in, and this matrix is applicable in every kind of organization. So this is a really added value. And last, there is a chapter about the support we can give to the customers when they visit the exhibition. And it is true that the multisensorial approach is evident, is needed, but if we focus only on the technicalities of it, we really risk to be misled. And so we believe that well, you can have a mental mapping of something touching, but at the meaning of this map, how can you interpret this map? Obviously, if you can see or not, when you look at an art piece, you can give to this art piece the meaning that your knowledge, your cultural baggage, let's say, can allow you to. And normally you ask to an expert, between brackets, to help you widen this interpretation. So the real issue is how we tell the content, how we help all the users to correctly, or not correctly, to interpret the art piece in many ways, more than those they normally would do with their own, let's say, cultural capacity. And the problem is, in my modest opinion, on how we simplify the descriptions for different kind of users and potential visitors. And this is really an issue I suggest to the coordinator. The next conference could be focused on this issue. So, well, multisensoriality, but what we say through this multisensoriality, how those messages should be prepared to be understood and to give real added value to the users. So, thank you for your attention. I really want to thank all the partners that really gave a strong amelioration to the papers we did and to the work we done. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, so thank you, Ingrid and Gilberto, for your presentation. Now it's up to you. Do you have questions, comments, recommendations? So you're welcome.